Breaking Through by Brenda Smith. Chapter 11, Critical Reading. Chapter Review. What will you learn in this chapter? What do critical readers do? What is an author's purpose or intent? What is the author's point of view? What is bias? What is tone? What is a fact? What is an opinion? What is a fallacy? And what is propaganda? What do critical readers do? Well, critical readers usually use direct statements. They do not like indirect or implied meaning. They like to get right to the nitty-gritty and figure out what the author is trying to say, or they like to be very explicit themselves. They make inferences. Good critical readers read between the lines, and they come up with a conclusion based on the facts and the clues in the passage and make an educated guess, which is an inference. They use their prior knowledge. They use what they already know and bounce it off what they are learning in order to know if what they believe is correct or not correct, so they can self-correct. So it is so important to use your schema, your prior knowledge, in figuring out new information. And they use language clues. They look at vocabulary, they look at slanted language, they look at biased language, they look at opinions and facts and figure out what's right, what's wrong, and what conclusion can I come based on the language used by the author. Critical readers recognize the author's purpose or intent. Every author has a purpose or intent. You have a purpose or intent when you write. But what is that purpose? Is it to inform? Is it to persuade? Is it to entertain? You need to know the purpose so you know how to take and digest the information. If it's to inform, then it's going to be factual and unbiased and neutral. If it's to persuade, it will be biased, it will be slanted, it will be emotional, and if it's to entertain, hopefully, it will be funny. So you need to know the purpose so you know how to take the information from the author. Critical readers recognize the author's point of view or bias. Point of view or bias, those are synonyms. They mean the same. It means how you feel about a particular subject. It's not negative and it's not positive. It's just what it is. It is your point of view or your bias. Point of view, author's opinion or position on the subject. That's the way you look at the subject matter, being right, wrong, left, right, whatever you categorize it as. Bias. Bias is an opinion or a judgment associated with a prejudice. So that means that you take your point of view and then you slant it to have feelings, and that would be a judgment. It also typically has a negative connotation, meaning people feel that bias is negative. However, bias and point of view are really the same thing. But in the media, when we hear bias, we think, oh my gosh, you're not supposed to have a bias. But it's impossible not to have bias. We are all human beings and we all have bias, but we need to recognize that so we can learn and grow. And it may not tell both sides of the issue. When people have bias, usually they're very passionate about their point of view or their one side. So we need to make sure that we hear both sides of the story before we come to a conclusion. And if we are highly biased, we need to make sure we examine that within ourselves to know if there's another side of the story and if we're acknowledging that. Because if we're not, then we're really not acting like an educated adult. And we need to act like we are educated, because during this educational process, we should always look at both sides of the story. Critical readers recognize the author's tone or attitude. Believe it or not, you have a tone when you write, just like you have a tone when you speak. It can be angry, cheerful, depressed, distressed, formal, frustrated, humorous, objective, optimistic, pessimistic, serious, or righteous. Depending on your word choice, it will give off this tone or attitude. That's why it's so important to choose our words correctly, because it's not what you say so much as how you say it. So if you choose a different word, it will give off a different tone. And you want to give a consistent tone throughout your writings, because if you don't, you may confuse your reader. If you're reading material, you will pick up a tone or an attitude, and that will persuade you. If you are being informal, or if you're being formal and objective, then you need to pick words that are not biased and neutral, because you're giving information only. All these words presented to you now are obviously persuasive in tone. There's a feeling behind it. But if you're being formal and objective, then you need to pick neutral words. So you really need to know your purpose before you begin to write, because your purpose will let you know what kind of words you will choose for your tone. Example of tone. You tell me, what is the tone, attitude behind this passage? Tiger Woods doesn't just play golf well, he plays better than anyone in the world. By age 3, the amazing Tiger shot 48 to 9 holes. And at age 8, he won an international junior tournament. What is the tone? Nostalgic, ironic, or admiring? Example of tone. What is the answer? Admiring. The author admires this athlete by showing through words how impressed he or she is with Tiger's abilities over the years. Critical readers distinguish fact from opinion so they can make educated and informed decisions. A fact is a statement that can be proven true or proven false. For example, the temperature in the class is 78 degrees. Either that's correct or it's not correct. Opinion, a statement, a feeling that cannot be proven right or wrong. It's that gray area. It may be 99.9% true, but that doesn't make it a fact because it's not 100%. For an example, this classroom is always hot and stuffy. Well, that depends on your own personal feelings and opinions. So just because you agree doesn't make it a fact. It has to be able to be proven 100% yes or no in order to be a fact. Everything else is opinion-based. Critical readers recognize valid and invalid support for arguments. There is different support, and we call it fallacy or propaganda. A fallacy. Fallacy is an error in reasoning that can give an illusion of support. It really seems awesome. It seems like it totally supports what we're reading, but it's not true. It's a fallacy. For example, everybody has these shoes. So should you. That's when we are jumping on the bandwagon. Everybody's doing it. You should do it too. It sounds so good, but everybody has these shoes? I mean, come on. Not possible. So when you get down to the nitty-gritty, it's not really supporting the argument. So it is a fallacy. How about propaganda? Where fallacies are prevalent, especially in advertisements. So we call it propaganda when it is a fallacy. And there's so many different areas of fallacies. For an example, Tiger Woods is an ad for sports shoes to persuade you to buy them. So he's in an ad to support buying shoes. That's called a testimonial. Do we know if Tiger Woods is wearing those shoes? No. He says he is, but come on, really. Do we know he's wearing them? Do we know he likes them? He's being paid for the advertisement. So that is a form of propaganda because it is a fallacy. We don't know for sure if it's true just because a testimonial says it is, but we're persuaded because it's Tiger Woods. So we have to be careful not to fall stray to these type of propaganda techniques.